Welcome to the Courage and Cannabis Show, where we bring you insightful conversations with the authors of the #1 best-selling books, Courage and Cannabis. I'm your host, Candy Flores, and today we're diving into the community that makes the cannabis space great. Welcome our co-host, Waxy Brown, and our special guest, Chip Paul from Edmond, Oklahoma. Hi, everyone.
Hi. Well, glad
Hey,
to be
everybody.
here.
How are
Hey,
y'all
thanks for
doing?
coming on, Chip. We appreciate you.
Absolutely. Glad to be here. Thank you guys so much for having me.
Candy,
Absolutely.
thanks for having us on the show today.
Yes, thank you for joining us, and thank you for co-hosting.
You betcha. I'd love to give a great big intro about who Chip Paul is and how he's a good friend of mine.
Okay, before we embark on this literary journey, a quick shout out to our sponsors of the book series who help make this podcast possible: Compass Naturals, Endovibe Cannabis Centers, Spender, The Cannamom Show, Blev 614 Network, Cannabis BPO, Columbus Botanical Depot, Daga Digital Marketing, Hempbox, etc., Ohio Medical Marijuana Physicians Association. Remember, the Courage and Cannabis book series is a project of the Growth, Harmony, and Happiness Community Foundation. This is Courage and Cannabis Show. You can learn more about each or these on courageandcannabis.com. Now let's get started. Go ahead,
Right
Waxy.
on.
You got the mic.
I appreciate you the most, Candy, and big shout out to all those sponsors that help make this such a wonderful opportunity and such a great experience to be here. Thank you for every single one of those folks. I'd like to introduce to the Courage and Cannabis family, to the listeners and everybody out there, Chip Paul. Chip Paul's a very good friend of mine who I've leaned on over the years many, many, many times for education and information as the conversation of our endocannabinoid system swept across the United States of America and beyond. The reason Chip is qualified to be here and able to give me that information is all kinds of wonderful, great experiences he's had in this world. And he is an endocannabinoid forensic researcher, which is a pretty big deal in my world. He's also published several articles in peer-reviewed medical journals on the endocannabinoid system and science. And that's just amazing to me because we just don't see a lot of that happening in this world. Chip is a one of a kind like that. He's also the owner, him and his wife are the owner of True Medics, which is a company out there that as you begin to delve into what we're going to talk about today, you're going to want to go check out those products and what Chip and his team have put together for this experience that you're going to have. When you talk about healthier medicines, healthier experiences in life, you're not going to find that in the big hospitals and in those doctors' offices as much as you're going to find it with folks that understand our endocannabinoid system, which is what Chip does. So I'm really excited about that. Welcome to the show, Chip Paul.
Oh, thank you, Waxy. It's just thank you for that wonderful intro. And we are good friends, and we do this a lot, which is a really nice and cool, comfortable thing. But also, thank you to Courage and Cannabis for having me on. And hopefully, we're going to educate some folks, and we're going to help some folks. We're going to put down some good content here that's helpful to people, and that's what we want to do is help folks.
Very cool.
Thank you.
Chip, the big conversation out there, whether it's celebrities talking about it or Dr. Phil's of the world or the hospitals, is the Ozempic, the new weight loss trend. And isn't it strange? Because I just thought of this before we jumped on, Chip. I love to freestyle just a little bit. So isn't it strange how these fads, we call them fads, these weight loss fads, always come in the form of products when, as we're going to talk about today, our body already has everything it needs to be able to provide the things that these weight loss options provide. So isn't that funny that it always seems to come in on that great big pharma horse and never from the products that are right in front of us most of the time?
Yeah, absolutely. And you're absolutely right. If you look at the current slate of weight loss drugs, the way that they work is by impacting a peptide called GLP-1. So you hear a lot about peptides and, GLP-1 and all this pharma stuff. Well, the really cool thing about affecting GLP-1 is I can do that through your endocannabinoid system. And in fact, the endocannabinoid system is the natural way to create that peptide, to invoke that peptide, to make that peptide work. So what pharma's done is they've kind of, let's say, jumped the system like they always do. So the way that nature works is to try to, you kind of work through algorithms and you kind of work through these pathways, right? So kind of a lot of if then else statements, let's say. And so if certain pathways are on, other pathways will be off. And the endocannabinoid system is kind of what manages this symphony inside of us, all these pathways and kind of regulatory pathways. So if you just think logically, when we eat, it's very important that we understand, first of all, how much fat we have stored, right? And if we have a lot of fat stored, there should be a communication signal right back to our brain that says, stop eating now. You have plenty of fat. You have plenty of energy. You don't need to eat. Stop, right? That doesn't happen right now. And there's a reason for that. But right now, that's kind of broken in all of us. But the other thing that has to happen is as soon as I put food in my mouth, I need to know what I'm eating because my pancreas has to understand what to release. And my pancreas will release 3 different kinds of enzymes. So it will release something to break down carbohydrates, something to break down protein, and something to break down fats. Those are way different things. It's really easy to absorb carbohydrates. It's really hard to absorb fats. So I've got to have this different structure in my stomach even to deal with this stuff. So right off the jump, when I eat something, I have to know what it is. The main sensor, one of the main sensors in that whole system is an endocannabinoid sensor called GPR120. Your kind of release of GLP-1 and other peptides that kind of control satiety is GRP119. And again, he's another endocannabinoid receptor, which is really cool.
I think it's very interesting that the first thing that we always jump to is a prescription from a doctor or an advertisement that you see on your television. The truth is, you've been stifled in the past, and so have many people. A lot of people think of this, our First Amendment rights and things like that. When we go on social media and we say cannabis or marijuana or even endocannabinoid system, oftentimes we're flagged, shadow banned, things like that. You've experienced that in your actual life, Chip, through the work that you've done and everything else. I want the listeners to know that you did a talk for TEDx, right? And that talk was taken down, maybe never even aired because of simply the power of the information that you carry to be able to take big swings at what Big Pharma is doing. And I just think of these products like Ozempic, right? And I see all this magical stuff happening and all this. Well, I didn't see any crazy trials. We didn't talk about this for a decade first. It seems like it's just something that's out there that we're probably going to find out isn't healthy for us, when in fact there's other ways to do these things. And I want you to kind of talk to the listeners too, because you kind of opened my eyes. It's not cannabis. It's not smoking a joint or a blunt or taking a dab or an edible. That's not how I control my endocannabinoid system. Talk a little bit about that and how that pertains to the topic at hand with weight loss.
Oh man, so you said a lot there. The company that, again, we don't want to get, let's say, in legal action with that company, so we won't name that company or the drug. But the drug that you're referring to is a European manufactured drug. And that drug is not distributed in Europe at all. Europe considers that drug unsafe. That company found a market for it here because, again, 50% of us are obese here in America right now. We don't know how and understand how to control our weight. And if you want me to talk about that, I'll happily give you a quick thing on how everyone can control their weight, but I don't want to take too much time. So, if you look at, to your point about the endocannabinoid system. So I speak on this system all the time and I watch people's eyes go straight to Chip is going to try to talk to me about cannabis and, convince me about CBDs or THC or something, right? And that's not the way this system works. So cannabis is a good way to supplement the endocannabinoid system, like turmeric is a good way to supplement into your immune system. So cannabis is a good supplement. But the endocannabinoid system itself is fed by dietary fats, okay? And the receptors that I just talked about that are involved in kind of this eating and this signaling, those are endocannabinoid receptors, but they're not affected by cannabis at all, okay? They're affected by GPR119's natural ligands, what they call it, is built from oleic acid that comes from olive oil that's called oleomide. Okay. And there's reasons why that oleomide signaling right now is getting lost in kind of our milieu of crap we feed ourselves. But, we could talk about that if you guys want. So,
it does all come down to, go ahead, Candy.
No, it's a very interesting.
Yeah, it really does come down to we are what we eat, right? But also, like, that's the energy that we're putting into our body. We go and we chase the most excellent gasoline for our big powerful vehicles, and we run all the best stuff through our AC units in our homes, and we do everything, but we don't treat ourselves as well as we treat our the products that we even have laying around our house. We treat our animals and our pets sometimes better than we do ourselves when it comes to what we're bringing into our system. But I wanted people to know, it doesn't, taking an edible isn't how you fix things. Okay, it's more. It starts more from what are we doing wrong from the gate. Well, Chip will be the first one to tell you society as a whole is doing it all wrong. It's not just us making poor decisions. Our decisions are becoming harder and harder to make because of the products that are available to us and the expenses involved.
Yeah, exactly. If you go to, any processed food is likely not going to be good for you, right? So what we naturally need, the biggest thing that we naturally need to eat are dietary fats, all right? And we eat a lot of fat, but it's all saturated fat, and that's one of the fats that we need to eat. We also need to eat monounsaturated fat. And in fact, we should eat a little bit more monounsaturated than saturated. And those are really important. That's kind of fuel, and that's what we store. But the biggest and most important fats are omega-3 and omega-6. And they're how I program you. And I program you through your endocannabinoid system, but I program you by the omega-3 and omega-6 fatty acids that you eat, or, I can feed you. If I feed you what we're eating right now, it's about 1 to 40, 1 omega-3 to 40 omega-6s, you're sick. You suffer from every autoimmune. You get cancer. You can't defend yourself from pathogens. You're just a sitting duck for disease. That's right where we're at, boys and girls. Now, if I feed you 1-to-1, omega-3, omega-6, I can't get you sick. I can walk you through every COVID world in the world and you won't get sick. I can't get a pathogen to infect, maybe really severe ones, but it's really hard to get you infected with a pathogen. You won't get cancer. You won't get an autoimmune. You're healthy as a horse. So we all eat way too many omega-6s right now. So omega-3s are really the thing that we all need to supplement with, but just know in your head, again, there's ratios there that kind of we need to meet. Because we're so O6 heavy, we need to eat more O3. The second most important thing that we eat are amino acids, and we eat those in the form of protein, okay? So, it doesn't matter if it comes from a cow or a plant, all right? Protein is protein. And protein is just a string of amino acids. All right. So that's super important. You need 9 essential amino acids. You need them every day. A cell can't do it can't make GLP-1 peptides without amino acids to make it with. So it's got to have those aminos to be able to build those peptides that you need for all the signaling. And, those are really the two most. Vitamins are, somewhat critical. You need oxygen, you need water. But those are the biggest things. So you'll notice I didn't say anything about carbohydrates, did I? And again, all of the carbohydrates are good as sort of right now because we have to have a microbiome because we're so whacked out in our diet. So we've got to kind of manage this microbiome that perhaps isn't necessary, but right now it is. Okay. So carbohydrates are kind of important for the microbiome, fiber in a fermenter. So any carbohydrate in a like apple cider vinegar will help promote good gut health. And that's you don't need probiotics. You don't need any of that. Just celery and Bragg's apple cider vinegar will get you there. But that's really all you need to eat as far as a cell is concerned. Okay.
So it's interesting when you start to talk about all the food things and everything. Now we're talking about changing the dynamic of our system. How does that come to play with our endocannabinoid system, and how can we utilize the information that we have to communicate weight loss and our endocannabinoid system?
So real quick, the way that the endocannabinoid system sort of works around these, let's say omega-3 and omega-6 fatty acids, is that the way you work our bodies are really reactionary. So we're set to sort of like a spring, right? So you could think of fight or flight, and as soon as that bear comes up behind us, wow, we have all this chemical release and we have all these neuroreceptors happen. So we're set to kind of run that way. The endocannabinoid system is kind of what dials us back and, oh, it's a book that dropped, not a bear behind you, right? So you kind of get this idea of an inhibitory response. So if I feed you the wrong kind of fat, well, if I feed you equal omega-3, omega-6, I set a very, let's say, not so sensitive spring. So you're not so reactionary. I don't have so much to dial back. You still have fight or flight, but it's not like everything is crazy, right? The way that we're eating right now, we're winding our spring so tight. We're so sensitive in the inflammatory direction. And you think, well, okay, that affects me if I get scraped or an infection. No, this affects your mind. This affects how you react to stress. This affects how you react every day. And we're wind our spring so tight that we're just so reactionary to everything. So, and this is because of our omega-3 and omega-6 fatty acid balance that feeds right into our endocannabinoid system. So the endocannabinoid system has to have a state, a natural kind of normal resting place. And it should be right in between inflammation and deflammation. And right now we're setting it to be super heavy inflammation and very sensitive without any offsetting anti-inflammatories. I mean, how many omega-3s do any of you guys eat out there? Where would you even know to find them, right? Walnuts, chia seeds, hemp seeds, good sources.
Great. We have a question. How can we mainstream healthy lifestyle in the stressful manufactured world?
Yeah, so I would say we all need to better understand how our bodies work, right? So I say this all the time to kind of people who I consult with, but no one ever gave me an operations manual for this thing, right? This vehicle that we all drive around. And I think we're all to the point where, yeah, we're soul and kind of we drive around this, meat puppet thing, but that's kind of two different things. But anyway, nobody gave me an operations manual for this thing that I got to drive around every day, right? So nobody told me, here's the oil I need, or like Waxy was saying, what type of gasoline I need to put in me. Nobody gave me that manual. So we have one. So it's actually free on our website. So if you go again, if you go to True Medics, you'll get there. We'll make sure that people can get there and download this. But this is free. So I wrote an operations manual for humans, basically what you need to do, kind of baseline stuff that everybody needs to understand about how you work that is really going to help you with your health if you have disease. For instance, I'll give you this quick for instance. So there's a difference. We have two different gears. You have a low gear and a high gear. In high gear, I can fight cancer. In high gear, I have a strong immune system. In high gear, I can athletically perform. In high gear, I have a banging immune system. I can fight off a bunch of stuff. In low gear, I have none of that. I have no way to fight cancer. I have a low immune system. I'm, 30 times less energetic. I can't athletically perform as well. Well, every time you eat a meal, you go in low gear for 5 hours. So this is why intermittent fasting is such a big deal to people. And it is I hold the first issued patent on being able to manipulate your endocannabinoid system with non-cannabis stuff, with herb, right? And again, I'm going to teach you about intermittent fasting first, because that is the most important health tip that I could ever give you, even above these wonderful supplements, that we have in our company. So.
And when you talk about intermittent fasting, a lot of folks who aren't aware of what that is think like, oh, that's going days without food, and it isn't necessarily that. So if you could talk a little bit about that, and why it's helpful.
Yeah, so I'll tell you this from the perspective of a bear, all right? So, but this weight and immune system. So we'll leave off the time that a bear goes into a cave. So we all know that by the end of a summer, there are no fat bears. All bears are muscular, they're healthy, they're fit, they're exactly what we want to be. And we also know that at the end of the fall, there are no thin bears. They're all heavy. They're all obese. If a fall bear stayed a fall bear for years, they would have metabolic syndrome. They would have diabetes. They would have all the things that we have if we stay overweight, but they do go into the cave. But how does that work? How does a bear control that? Because they do. They clearly do. All bears do it. So a bear, when it comes out of its cave in the spring, will only eat in a 4-hour window. So forget about breakfast, lunch, and dinner. It's about the first time I eat more than 50 calories, I'm opening an eating window. And when I quit eating for the day, I'm closing that window. So a bear will only do a 4-hour window all through the spring and all through the summer. What that does is that promotes leanness, that promotes good health, that you cannot gain weight. If you're doing that, you will be in an ideal weight. If you're also exercising, you will really get fit, very, very fit. A bear, when it gets ready to put on weight for the winter, now, and a bear will eat a little bit more carbohydrate than protein, just a little bit more in the spring. So there is that factor. But a bear, when they get ready to put on weight for the fall, all they do is change that window. They open that window to a greater than 12-hour window. And when you do that, you can't lose weight. You're going to store fat. That's the way mammals work. So over a 12-hour window, no good. That will cause you to gain weight. That will cause your immune system to be down. That will cause you to be in a less than healthy state. 4-hour window is kick ass. Now, sorry if I could say that. Hopefully I can say the A word on here. But here's a caveat, a quick caveat is that, everybody, when I tell people this, they go, oh, I can't only eat in a 4-hour window. Well, a couple of things. You can eat the entire 4-hour window if you want to. That's what a hungry bear does. They'll eat salmon for 4 hours. So that's fine. Better if you're eating healthy stuff. And then the other, and again, what we really recommend people starting with is an 8-hour window. Okay. 8 hours is good. But 4 hours is better. If you have cancer, you better be in a 4-hour, not an 8-hour, because that's really going to help your body. But the other important piece of information is we all can go 40 days without eating. Now you're going to say, no, I can't, Chip. I get hungry. Let me tell you about what you think is hunger. What every day at 10 o'clock, this is Zeitbringer times. You can do Zeitbringer +3, Zeitbringer +9. But every day at about, let's say 9 or 10 o'clock, and then about 3 or 4 o'clock, you begin to express CB1 neuroreceptors in your stomach like mushrooms. Blop, 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 blop. They pop up, and that makes you hungry. Again, or what we perceive now as hunger. So it's all endocannabinoid driven. You can wait it out, or you can take a teaspoon of olive oil, and that'll damp down the mushrooms and kind of get rid of it. But anyway, what we think of as hunger now is not hunger. When you really need to eat, it's in the throat. You feel it in your throat, not your stomach. What we feel in our stomach is these natural kind of processes and gas mainly.
Wow.
Very cool. I'll tell you, I've heard you talk many, many times, Chip, and I learned something new every single time. I'm over here like my jaw dropping with some of this information. So we now know that, and we won't say the name, but we now know that there are products out there. I'm going to say products because that's not medicine. Medicine isn't a product, right? It's something that's God-given, earth-given, things like that. So there's products out there that people are running to, and they're celebrity endorsed, and they're very expensive. And in fact, weight loss doesn't have to be expensive. It doesn't have to come in a product, but it does. And you didn't ask me to do this, but I sure would like to talk for just a second about True Medics, your company that your wife Cindy and you have. And there is a product that you guys provide that is a healthy option. Now, here's what I want to know, and I'd love to splash True Medics back on the screen if we're able to. What I'd love to know, Chip, is not only why it's important to go the direction of this stuff, but I also want to know, why does it work? Why does the product you're selling, that you're providing on this, why is it a better option for folks? Because obviously it's a whole heck of a lot cheaper. It's, for one, it's natural. I know where you're going to go with that. But talk to me about why is it effective? How is it effective? And because I'm very interested now.
Yeah. So basically, it takes a strategy. So you kind of, or the way that I do things, I don't know how other natural products people do things, but the way I do things is I really, I science it out, right? So I'm looking at kind of what happens in your stomach. Actually, the next version of this product will be bitter, because bitter actually helps cut appetite, which is an interesting thing.
Oh. And before we go any further, the product that we're talking about that Chip produces is called Fast, and it's going to be, I think it's going to be the future of where this conversation goes with when we talk about bettering ourselves.
Yeah,
Go
and
ahead, Chip.
the big thing I'm trying to do with that product is sort of help cut your appetite so you can get to a 4-hour window or a 6-hour window, right? So that's the big purpose of the product. But the way that it works, well, I'll just talk about how satiety works, which is the scientific word for I'm full, stop eating. So let me talk you through how that works, and I'll talk you a bit through how the product works around that. But the way that that works is several things. So it starts with your taste buds, and the strongest expression of the product will be something that affects the taste buds along with everything else that I'm going to tell you. So that's why it works really good now. It's going to work really, really, really good the next version of it for what I'm telling you. So if I go sweet, if I give you something sweet on your tongue, it's going to stimulate your appetite. Cannabis, interestingly, kind of creates a sensitivity for sweet. So it kind of conditions you almost to overeat a little bit. But anyway, yeah, bitter will kind of tamp all that down and can cause you. But anyway, when you're eating, the way that you know that you're full, the way that the signaling works is with something called GPR119 and also another receptor called GPR120. GPR120 is in fat, it's in your all the organs that need to say, hey, we've got enough stored, or, hey, I've got enough juice to run your immune system. I've got enough juice to run myself. So everything that needs energy, let's say, has this signaling receptor that will signal back and forth to say, I've got enough. Okay. Right now, those are broken. And the reason that they're broken is they're not being stimulated in the proper way, or the molecules that you need to basically work them are being blocked by other things like pathogens. And as shocking as this sounds, basically I can create a situation in your gut that a lot of us have where you have pathogens that will block your satiety molecules. So they'll block your ability to make oleomide by a factor of 8, all right, and cause you to be biased towards sugar and fat, which helps them, which advantages them. So a lot of us have that going on. So this is designed into the product. So the product looks very benign. And as you look at the fast product, and you go, well, there's not much in it, I wonder what it's doing. Yeah, it's stimulating all those things I just mentioned. So I'm going at this bacterial problem a little bit. There's better ways to do that. Ideally you're, going at that in a different way, but I have to go at it a little bit because I have to block that action. I'm stimulating those receptors, and, and if you read about, if anybody's like a hacker like me, you're going to go, okay, well, Chip, you're telling me something, but I'm going to go research on my own. So if you research GPR120, you're going to see exactly what I'm talking about. And if you research GPR119 and look at it in terms of GLP-1, so just put in Google GLP-1 space GRP120 and GRP119.
I don't mean to interrupt, but whenever I asked Chip, you're an endocannabinoid forensic researcher. He said, yeah, I'm a biohacker. Oh, okay. That makes a lot more sense. So, I love hearing the, let's not get it twisted though, Chip. Some of the things you're talking about aren't simple, and it's not simple education or information because it's been suppressed for so long, because there's other products out there that make people a lot of money, and they use that money for product suppression. So it's very interesting to get this information out there. Before we go a lot further, I do want to bring up something, and that's, it bothers me. I've said it a couple of times during the interview. It bothers me that there's celebrity endorsements on this, that they're using the influential folks to push products and things like that. One of the key groups that are watching things like that are the children and our youth of America and beyond. And part of the problem I have with that, Chip, is I learned about child obesity from you. Could you talk a little bit about that? Because these are the folks, the next generation, who are watching the ways to fix these problems, when in fact, like a lot of us who deal with obesity, gained obesity through age and through our lifestyle, whereas it seems like child obesity is becoming an epidemic that is growing. So how can we combat that and at the same time, deal with the fact that you've got billions of dollars on the other side pushing these kids towards alternative resources?
Yeah, no, that's a super good question, Waxy. And you're absolutely right. 33% now is this statistic, right? There's Tucker Carlson actually interviewed a guy on obesity. It was a really good show. You may or may not like Tucker, but go find that show because it's really good. But 33% now, that's where we are with children. Now let's talk that through a little bit. Why? Okay. Because you say, oh, well, it's sugar. And it is sugar. I mean, that's a big part of it. You say, okay, well, just have your kids stop eating sugar. Anybody got kids out there? So you know what that's like. So and then you try to educate the kids. We go, sugar's bad, sugar's bad, sugar's bad.
Mm-hmm.
They're broken and not in a horrible way. Let's say they're just infected with pathogens that are causing this situation. They're causing them to crave sugar in an inordinate fashion, like way more than they should, like in a heroin, like crack kind of way, right? So good luck trying to change that. You've got to get in the middle of the pathogen loop first. But this is a major problem. So more and more, and it's, there's certain types of pathogens. Again, there's ways to identify these guys. No, your doctor is not going to help you here. You're going to have to go to an alternative practitioner, find somebody who does bioresonance or something like that, but find somebody who's talking about this kind of stuff and has expertise in it. And, if you're in Oklahoma, come see us. But, and kids are 33%. I mean, that's COVID times a jillion. We should be CDC, FDA, we should be all hands on. Every grant issued should be targeted toward this, right? And it's solvable in the endocannabinoid system. And guess what? That's why they're not. And it's a make you sick, make you better thing. And we all know that now, we've all figured that out. So, but, can you fix it? Yeah. Again, look at, our fast product is a very, very good way to do that. Don't go to pharma with GLP-1 effectors. Look at endocannabinoid solutions and, I'm telling you right where to go. I'm not going to give you all my intellectual property on the call, but and if you're a smart guy or you have a lot of money out there and you want to kind of go at this problem, let's go, man. There's people ready to go to solve. Autism is another one that we could do a whole show on that's similarly addressed, kind of in the endocannabinoid system.
I know you've put a lot of effort and a lot of work behind autism, Chip. So that community, I'm sure, is just extremely grateful for the work you guys have done.
Oh, thank you.
Yes, thank you so much.
Thanks. But there's really God is a perfect engineer. I think we can all agree on that, right? And God made every single cell inside of us perfect, meaning that it's always striving toward perfect function. I can hit it with nuclear radiation. It'll just divide, form a new cell. Perfect function, perfect function. So what does that mean? Every cell inside of you, every cell inside of me is clawing toward perfect function. I don't care how old you are or how sick you are or how debilitating of a disease you have. Every cell in you is trying to strive toward perfect. The fact that we all do this and we all do there's reasons for it. And again, it's going to be environment. You might be allergic to something. It's chronic inflammation at the core. It's oxidative stress. You might be allergic to something that might cause it. You might live over a lead mine that might cause it. But for most of us, it's pathogens. And it's because we don't understand how to work our immune system. Again, we eat too frequently. We allow our immune system, you're 5 hours in low energy every time you eat. Again, we eat 3 times a day and we snack. And so we completely drop our shields. We get infected with stuff. And now we're just, we're fodder for the pharma system. And nobody gave us a manual on how we work.
I was about to say that, Chip. I wanted to let you finish, but that's how I wanted to close this thing. You started out, we talked about how we didn't have a manual for this body. No one gave it to us. Your parents weren't given that. They smack you on the butt, you cry, and you're on your way. And there is a manual out there, and it's put out there by some pretty trusted folks, and that is Chip and Cindy Paul, some of my favorite people on the planet who are out there trying to make a difference in the world. And so I really, really appreciate the work that you've done, you and your family, your wife, what you guys have gone through, the struggles, because I know, and I know we're not going to get into it on this show, but Chip, from Waxy to Chip, I know what you guys have been through, and I want to see you succeed in so many good ways, because every bit of information that you're providing is game changing and health changing, and helps to make us better people. And no, we're not going to get to the perfect cell, but we do want to get better, Chip. And that's what you and Cindy are great at, is helping us get better. Thank you.
Yes,
Thank you,
thank
sir.
you.
This has been absolutely fat. Like I like to hang out in the background doing this show, but what a fabulous conversation. And I am like, I know people don't like doctors, I can't do a whole lot about that, but I do my best to stay on the right side of things. But the work that you're doing is incredible. Your mindset on this, and that's the thing, like, you have to be countercultural, right? You have, like, if you are going along with the way things are going, you will be filled with disease. It is inevitable. And and when you do go counterculture, because obviously it's not with everyone else, people see it as bizarre and weird, and why are you doing that? But to be healthy, to be whole, to be at peace, currently in our society, you have to be countercultural. You have to be looking into things yourself to be able to survive.
You know what? I would say it's almost back to cultural. You almost have to be indigenous, right? So we almost have to get back to our indigenous, and I'm native. So we all do almost, all, it doesn't matter if you're Caucasian, you have indigenous roots. We all
Right.
need to get back to our indigenous roots, which is back to nature, man. And
Yes.
Dr. Bridget, I want to commend you, because so for all you guys out there, if you're a doctor, a medical professional, you just don't know about any of this stuff. You have to be self-taught. And it's very brave for a medical professional to step, there's all kinds of concerns if you're a medical professional, you practice in this space. It's very scary, insurance and, all kinds of things. So I want to commend you for stepping out and being brave and educating yourself. And thank you.
No, I appreciate. I think you get to also, I started instead of going with how I've been socialized to think, because really, being a doctor, a lawyer, whatever it is, it's not just what you learn. You're really taught how to think a certain way.
Mhm.
And when I started realizing what I've been socialized to think and to believe may not be the way it should be, or it's actually benefiting someone else other than the patient, I started paying a lot more attention to what they were asking, what they were interested in, instead of the script. And I'm not against, well-researched medicine, but instead of going with the script, I started paying attention to every individual differently and realized it's not really what it's all cracked up to be. And so we all have to do our own research, unfortunately, but there are people like you that, are doing the work. Your book information is streaming at the bottom here. And so definitely go to that website, everybody, and take a look at this. And would love to have you back to talk about some other information and to be a part of our encouraging cannabis community, because we really believe in supporting one another and helping people find their way in a really crazy world. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. And it's an honor really to be here. And, I know a lot about you guys, and I know the good work that you're doing. So thank you for all the hard work that all you guys are doing. Thanks.
Absolutely.
I appreciate it.
Candy, you want to go ahead and actually close it? I'm going to sneak backstage again.
Thank you, Bridget.
Thank you, Dr. Bridget.
I'll let Candy close her out, but in my closing, Chip, like I said, I just want to thank you very much for every bit of information that you put out, because nobody paid you to be here today, but the information that you've given us is priceless, and I want you to know that we're very aware of that. So thank you so much. And Candy, Dr. Bridget, thank you for putting this show on. You guys have had some supreme guests on this show, so I'm very happy that you let a couple of cats from the Midwest come on and surf the airwave with you.
Yes, thank you. So as we wrap up, what message or takeaway do you hope people to take away from your story, Chip?
Oh, just you have control of your own health. That's the biggest one, so your health is in your control. It's you only, you give it away at your own peril. So, research, find people like me and Waxy and Dr. Bridget and Candy are trying to spread the good word. So,
Thank you so much, Chip, for sharing your thoughts and experiences with us today. Before we go, where can our listeners find out more about you and connect with you online?
oh, sure. So TrueMedX, TrueMedX.com. So that's our brand. Daily, we have a clinic where we try to help people, and that's called Neighborly Wellness. And on your Chiron, that's where you're advertising the book or have the book. So people can find us there. I do a podcast. So if you just go to YouTube and type in Chip Paul, you'll find everything. My TEDx band, let's call it the band TEDx talk, is out there. So you can find that on my YouTube channel, and you can see why it was banned. It's so controversial. So.
Wonderful. And to our listeners, thank you for joining us on this episode of Courage in Cannabis, the community stories. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review our podcast. And stay tuned for more captivating conversations with authors sharing their courage in cannabis. To learn more about Courage in Cannabis, go to courageincannabis.com and you can purchase the books on Amazon. Until next time, happy reading.
All right.